Hey everyone, and a massive welcome to the next episode of How to Hire in Cybersecurity. My name's Simon Linstead. I'm the host and founder of the InfoSec Live community, and have we got an exciting show for you today. For those that don't know who InfoSec Live are, quick bit about us before we jump in and a little bit of housekeeping. Massive thanks to everyone tuning in live. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So please jump in the comments and ask questions as and when you can, and I'll definitely come back to them if I haven't got time to answer them at the moment. And for those watching on the replay, again, jump in the comments, let us know what you like, let us know what you don't like, because it's all about getting that feedback to make sure we can improve the show. So InfoSec Live is a community set up last year by myself. We're an independent social network community of 3,000 cyber professionals, all sharing best ideas and practice in what we believe is the world's first dedicated security social network. And this new series is here to help by continuing the theme of our community of sharing best ideas and practice. And this one is aimed at addressing the big question, which is how to hire in cybersecurity. So rather than me ramble on like I do lots of times, let's get this episode started. And let's just do a quick intro on our guest here. We've got Sahiqa Bennett, is a tech entrepreneur who's lived and worked in Dubai, London, and New York, with a successful background in building digital and AI startups from ideation stage all the way through to launch within recruitment. She's currently the CEO of Instatalent.AI, which is a recruitment solution focused on the future and creating a better experience for all. And the recruitment process has been broken for decades, and I completely agree with that. And she's hoping to improve it by creating a seamless process. She wants to ensure the candidate experience is improved, and Instatalent.AI are proactive about changing the status quo, an agency which is helping employers address diversity and inclusion by ensuring people from all backgrounds are considered and represented fairly. So without further ado, let's bring her on. Sahiqa, a massive welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me this evening, or this afternoon if you're watching in the US. I know there's a few of you in the chat there. Carrie, Chimeria, Greg, you're in Germany, not the US. So we've got lots of different time zones, lots of people tuning in. And as I just said a moment ago, let's make this interactive and jump in and ask some questions. But as I promised a few seconds ago, I want to open up the floor now, Sahiqa, and ask you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So been in the recruitment industry for a while, but purely by accident. I think my own experience of using agencies and trying to fill some of these roles from a business point of view was pretty painful. And I think that when you are on one side of using a solution, it's the best place to be, because that's really where you feel the pain and you get to find out how things are done. So either if you're looking for a job or looking to hire, I think it's a great place to be if you're looking to innovate. And that's how I accidentally fell into recruitment, which was to try to change the whole way things are done, because I was quite shocked by the quality of the people that were coming through from the agencies, quite frankly.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And I think coupled with that was also the shock of interviewing people who had no idea who we were, what the role was, what the company was about. So there was no fit straight away. There were people that were not passionate. So I think candidates deserve more, and that's always been my goal, was to kind of make the whole process a little bit more bearable and to innovate. So yeah, I think I'm driven by the pain, because it's painful whichever way you want to look at it. It's still painful.
It's painful both sides, isn't it? It's painful for those hiring. Whether some of them are making it painful for themselves is probably another discussion. Mm-hmm. And it's also painful from a candidate point of view. But again, playing devil's advocate, you mentioned it as well a second ago. It's about managing expectations on both parts, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. And I think that the candidates also have to realise that every job will have a limitation, right? And the way candidates will look at a job is, yeah, I can do that. Yes, tick, 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 I can do this. And even if they can't, they could be willing to learn to do that. That's how they look at a job advert, for example. But then if you look at the employer, they're looking for every single box to be ticked, right? And they just want someone to hit the ground running. That's why. Yeah. So there is this huge disconnect between what people think they're good for and what they could do to what they actually need to be doing. And my job really, and where I'm really innovating currently, is about the future and bridging that gap to make sure that we're able to fill that need with very realistic kind of changes in that process that no one seems to be paying too much attention to. which
So
is
where do you see in the process that we can innovate then? Where is that part?
Transferable skills have always been something that I've been fascinated by. In fact, today, even a taxi driver, I was having a chat with him in the London cab, and he was talking to me about his son, who's just about graduated and was looking for a job. And this is a common thing where, if you've got any advice, what can happen? And I think that the part where number one way of hiring will always be through your network. Nothing's really going to replace the number one way of hiring, right? Let's be honest. If you've worked with someone, you've come across someone who's really good from the past, they're always going to be your go-to. That's a given. It's the other stage where you don't have a network, maybe, or don't have anyone that you know can fill that gap. That's really like the black hole. That's like out there, like in the unknown. So I think there it can be more of a proactive approach that employers, that we're helping certainly address with employers, is almost building that talent pipeline and not looking at it as a reactive situation, because it is. And whenever we speak to employers, like, when would you like this person to start? They're like,
next week,
yesterday, right, today. So it is the pain is very much like, it's hurting, I need someone straight away. Whereas, and there are candidates out there, you know, who can start straight away, but the fact is that they're not always evaluating maybe like, what is the future plan? What can we build up? And this also allows us to be like, we are more consultative. And I think they just really want to help solve this problem. And I think if we go deeper into the problem, it can't be fully solved, because I think it's a big giant of a problem. Yeah. I think there can be some quick improvements that can certainly be made, certainly in certain industries like cybersecurity, AI, tech. They're constantly going to need people.
How do we re-educate the employers or the hiring companies to take on board the fact that knee-jerk hiring isn't a sustainable method? You know, it's understandable, as you say, that companies do that and they recruit on demand. How do we persuade them to do otherwise? What's the secret?
So I think the knee-jerk reaction sometimes happens where they can't plan, right? Someone might have handed their notice in and they've got to fill that job. So it's not a case that employers are to blame on that side, but what I'm trying to help them plan ahead is by looking at the project. So some companies are very, like a consultancy, will bid on a project. They'll know that project's going to go live in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months. And that's a great position to be in, because we can really help build like the whole team. And if you place the whole team, if I said to you, who are the best people that you've worked with in the past, and I give you a list of roles, you can say to me, this one, this one, and this one. Yeah. That's a whole team going in, hitting the ground running. So that experience is like a dream for the employer, and also a nicer experience to the candidate, because I think it's little things like that. And then also upskilling, reskilling, giving the early ones a chance, like the graduates. I'm so impressed by the amount of people that are graduating with like amazing experience in cybersecurity. Now, if I really wanted loyal, committed employees, I would actually go and get them first and give them projects to demonstrate that they have the soft skills, because I think that's another really strong point, that a lot of employers need the soft skills, but there's no way of kind of assessing that. And then I think the overqualified. So I think there's a question here as
there is. Let me bring it up.
Yeah.
Is there a risk of being overqualified for graduates, especially if the graduate has no work experience but lots of certs? And that's something we see quite a lot of, I think. Thanks, Drew. I hope you're well, by the way.
Yeah, great question. And this is exactly my point, is I see people going out of the way, proactively learning and getting themselves in the space where they are more qualified. They've got these certificates beyond the degree, but where do they go? My job is to take them and give them the training, the soft skills, interview skills, and put them into jobs by building from both sides, really. And I think that the reason why this is important is that employers, if you've got a candidate that's got even 2 years experience, and you've got a candidate that's got no experience but a great degree in cybersecurity, that person is not really going to get picked. So as a result, they're going to be left on the pile. So I don't think there's a risk of being overqualified. I think it's great that you're doing the certificates. I think what needs to be done is interview practice, trying to get some projects, for example, from some of the employers. What are your wish list of companies that you want to work for? That's really where Instatalent.AI is really looking to make a difference, is by helping build the bridges between the candidates that are not yet employed with the companies that potentially are looking for people like that.
And I think if I've got this right, and obviously I don't know exactly what you're doing, but you mentioned the soft skills part, and in the InfoSec Live community, there's hundreds of superbly talented people who perhaps struggle a little bit on the soft skills, and I'm going to do a training session in there week after next for that. But that doesn't address all of the people. Talk to me. Actually, let's just bring this question up, because Kerry did ask a question. I did notice Kerry, but the chat's been going so quick. You know me, I'm nearly 50. It takes a while to catch up. How does someone like me get hired? Don't have experience, small amount of knowledge. I disagree with Kerry. You've been working with computers for like a decade or something like that. How do I even think about getting hired? The hiring and interviews I've had are nightmares.
They will be, because what the employer, how they're currently hiring, like I say, it is who you're also benchmarked against, right? So when candidates think, oh, I can do this job, I've got this experience, you don't know who else is in the mix. And that's right now, there is this talk about shortage of talent going on, and I believe that there are people out there that are just not being reached more successfully, and that's really where we're looking to make a difference. So interviewing, guiding people, doing role plays, getting people ready for certain projects by niche areas, right? And I think that's really important, because if we're trusted by the employers to seek out the best people for them, because every culture will be different. So there will be company cultures which take the Big Four example, or you take a more boutique culture of a company. They're very, very different. And people different candidate, and different soft skills are actually of value. So don't think, problem solving, analytical thinking, all of these are really important for certain companies. So I believe there is a job for everybody who wants to work, who's able to communicate and has some level of a willingness to get stuck in and ride through the pain. There is a job for people, but I think right now there's so much disconnect going on that it doesn't always reach the people that need it the most, which are the ones that are early on in their career, for sure.
I completely agree. And I think another thing worth pointing out is, even though a job title might be the same, that job at one employer, as you were just saying, like at an enterprise level or a smaller boutique firm, I've worked for both, and I know at smaller firms, sometimes you have to wear more hats, which for someone who likes a diverse work balance, you get to do lots of different things. That's amazing. But for people who just like to focus on what they like doing, they'd hate that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and throw remote working and hybrid in there, then you've got a whole different ball game altogether. So I actually think that there's a huge advantage for employers to look at talent in places that they wouldn't have normally looked before. And really, it's about reaching those people again, to make sure that they're evaluated on all levels. And what the great thing is that if you employ someone like that, you're going to retain them. Like the loyalty and the work ethic that you'll get from someone who is grateful to be given a chance is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So
I won't mention names, but a firm I'm working with at the moment, doing some consultation for, their most loyal, dedicated employees are ones that don't come from a technical background, but they've been given a chance from completely different careers. And the loyalty and work ethic you see from them compared to those who've been brought in at the level, where they need to be, it's just something else. So I completely agree. I think there's masses to be said about that.
Yeah, definitely. And the whole upskilling, that can be addressed. I think we're living in a world where a lot can be learned through conversation and through actual course and education. So we're also looking to help upskill people, put people in touch with, like, whether it's a 4-week course, whether it's a 6-month course, this is really going to make the difference. So I feel like, as recruitment is at the moment, it's like how it operates is, well, this is my little bit here. I'm an agency, so I'll focus on just whacking CVs across and hoping that the employer takes someone. Now, if you send the CVs of the same people are going to get hired. If you then encourage your employers to look outside of the box and consider, I call it the wild card, right? The wild card candidate. They'd also be surprised when they speak to them, and they'll be like, wow, normally we would pay X amount for someone of this level. However, this person's maybe 3 years off, but they've got enough to understand and build up to that role. So I've also helped employers where a career path has been mapped out already before the person has even started.
Wow.
Right?
That makes absolute sense though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose, again, it goes back to what you were saying earlier about that would work well for some organisations, but the smaller ones where that agility and adaptability is so crucial, it's really hard to put long-term plans for employees, especially at early stage startups, isn't it? I'm sure you know that from your history as well.
Yeah, definitely. It is a case, but it might be that, for example, there's a pool of candidates always available. So from our side, I think it is a case of we're specialising in everything to do with the future. And by the future, I mean the cutting edge things. And for us, there's always going to be a demand of some kind for people in this space. Therefore, when it comes to AI, the projects are just going off. Like, we're talking huge volumes of people are required, which is a great thing from our employers that we're working with. But again, working backwards, how does someone who's just graduated get into some of these companies, which is a dream of theirs? So I don't want people to have worked really hard, qualified, done all they've needed to do, and then not get a chance to put it into practice.
Yeah, again, it's about demonstrating what you've learned, isn't it, I suppose, and being able to relate that to that employment. Let's jump in the chat. Before I do that, Kerry, I noticed you saying you're having a tough day. Do you know what? I've had a tough day, my friend, as well. And I've got one more live stream after this one. But in an hour and 40 minutes, I'll be free. So if you want to catch up for a chat and a virtual coffee, send me a message afterwards and we'll have a chat. Anyway, moving on, Kerry. Dhruva, another great question I see. Let me bring that up. What does the initial screening of a resume depend on? Because most of the time my resume gets rejected in the first round without any communication from the hiring manager or anyone in the company to even judge those soft skills. Good question.
Excellent question. And this is exactly the area that I'm talking about. So if a resume normally is built on keywords, right? And it also depends on the agencies that represent you. So I've seen some pretty shocking things happen in agencies.
Is there different screening softwares then? See, I'm a novice at this, so I really don't know.
There can be. So I think there's all stages. So there's the agency, there's the hiring team and the talent acquisition team, and then there's the hiring manager. And sometimes there might be more than one hiring managers involved in the decision, especially when it comes to tech. So the first layer is, if you're dealing with an agency who represents you properly and has a great relationship with the employer, you're actually going to fast track through the process. So there are, as much as agencies get slated, there is actually a benefit if they're trusted and they're ethical and they're good. They're trusted by employers, and that will actually work.
And again, that goes up to Chimeria's comment saying her favourite thing is to network and get internal referrals, which is, I think, is an amazing point.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that kind of shows also that you're keen and you're willing to, you've identified the right person. Some software is designed to pick out keywords, so if there's things that you've got in your CV, it will pick those out. But the problem is, again, in your case, it seems like your resume is getting rejected. It might even be something like your name, right? And it, as awful as that sounds, I've seen this happen. I've witnessed it.
You see that bias still, do we? Even, I suppose, even software has to be programmed somewhere, doesn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, software won't completely eliminate the bias. It will, and I think when I'm talking about software, I'm saying that it picks out the keywords. But what I'm talking about is there's bias in the process where someone might not want to hire someone with that kind of name, and it sounds absolutely horrific and awful. But like I said, I've witnessed it, and I think employers actually need to take more responsibility to this diversity and inclusion that I'm hearing about so much, because it's not their fault as well. They are oblivious to some of the agencies that are representing them. So they actually need to also check that the pool of candidates that are coming in, that they start off with, are diverse.
That's what they're looking for.
And by that, I mean gender, I mean backgrounds, and some skill sets just naturally mean that, there may be more men in cybersecurity than there are women. That's just a general fact. However, I think it'll be great to sort of get a bunch of people upskilled in cybersecurity that are women, that are from different backgrounds. And that's where we plug in to sort of say, we will only evaluate people based on their potential, their ability, their untapped potential. And diversity is very, very important to me. So they'll never get, candidates that are all exactly the same background. All we care about is that they can legally work in the country where the role is, right? That's quite important. And with some countries, we have flexibility where they will even sponsor them in some.
Well, I know Dhruva has got the legal right to work in the UK. I believe you're in Ireland at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dhruva. And I think my answer to your question, I noticed you've put ouch there. Again, it is unfair. I completely agree. But if that's what's happening, it just refers back to the need to network even more and build up that side. And I'm hoping that you might be able to help Dhruva if I connect you up afterwards. Maybe you could have a chat with him, Sahiqa, and see what you can do.
Sure. There are a few people who have reached out to me, I would say, at that level, right? More than happy. Maybe I do a group session where a few of you, we can organise a call. Again, maybe Simon can be involved as well.
I'm happy to do that. Yeah, happy to organise it.
And there's little tips, and I do it for people whereby I kind of say, okay, just adjust this in your CV because it hasn't really demonstrated the fact that you haven't showcased any projects that you've worked on. So if you haven't got any experience, I would encourage, reach out to some of the employers that you would like to work for maybe and say, is there anything I can do just to demonstrate my, my keenness, my knowledge? And this is also something, like I say, we're looking to, if we can do this at scale, which is my dream, I really hope that we can change hundreds and thousands of lives, really, and make the whole journey.
Well, let's get that started in the InfoSec Live community for a group session. You've gone and said it live now, so I'm going to replay it back to you tomorrow and say, when can we book it in? I really appreciate that. Chimeri, I'm going to come back to your comment because you said you're glad that she spoke about it. And I suppose you're talking about the biases that we see. And it is a bit of an elephant in the room, and it's something that people always pretend they're all up for diversity and inclusion. Some companies I've seen is more of a box ticking exercise than it actually see any value in bringing in a diverse skill set, which clearly there is masses for. And again, you've got that subconscious bias as well, haven't you? I think that it is still in the industry, unfortunately, and it needs to be talked about because the more it's talked about, hopefully it will start to become addressed.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. Before the pandemic, I've always employed my team on a flexible basis, right? Flexibility, parents, mums, I've always encouraged it, men and women. And I put family-friendly things in place, which were, if you're a mum, you can work from home for the first year of your child's birth, things like that. And even the dads could work from home for the first 6 months if they wanted. So I did all of these things because I just care about performance. And I think when you're a small startup, you can make these kind of friendly policies, and the loyalty, again, the women in my team, the people that I had, they would stay with me because they felt they were supported and they could get on with their family life as well. I didn't force them to choose. And I think there are some very little tweaks that can happen. Like companies talk about flexibility, and I've, again, experienced this myself. And I think some of the comments were shocking in terms of they're not really setting themselves up to employ women. I'm not talking about my clients or employers. I'm talking just what I've heard in the industry from candidates who are forced to leave and make a choice between my job and my home life. So again, if you're not, diversity and inclusion isn't just the buzzword. It's not a phrase that suddenly in the last year or two has kind of blown up. What we really need to think about is if we make opportunities for if we have happy people that come into work, or work from home, however it is, it will just, again, you're offering them something that someone else isn't. You will retain them and you can develop them. And then I think the other important thing is if you're young, like graduates, or maybe you've upskilled and you're still early in your learning, it would benefit you to be in a hybrid model and go into the office and be mentored by some of the senior talent. So remote working, great when you're more experienced. If I was a graduate, I would want to be in the office because guess what? If you're in the office, you're learning, you're watching, you're absorbing, and the benefit is to you. It's your career, right?
And you're building relationships as well, aren't you? Even if it's at the coffee machine or in the kitchen getting your lunch, you're still developing relationships, and you never know. I keep mentioning my age because I'm feeling old at the moment, but I'm nearly 50 and I'm still getting things from 30 years ago that I've learned that really help now, and contacts from all that time ago that you end up getting back in touch with, and you never know what's going to come out of anything. And I want to just jump back and do a little dance on your first comment, which was about parents working from home. For anyone else out there whose children have gone back to school today, as much as I love my children, and I'm kidding, we've still got 4-year-old twins at home till next week, but having 5 youngest children in the house, it is quite nice to have them with some structure again.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think I love going in and going to meetings, and I think the power of face-to-face is definitely there, because some of the best meetings I have are face-to-face. There's so much that you can learn, and if you translate that over to the career, I do want to encourage people to sort of be open to all sorts of hybrid models and so on. Like, it's not all doom and gloom. We do appreciate circumstances and people, and I'm encouraging employers. I think definitely there's a lot more than there was, put it that way, 2 years ago.
Although you could argue, especially here in the UK, with a fuel crisis or energy crisis coming up in the winter, might be quite nice to have a warm office to go to for a few hours. I can say that because when I went bankrupt and lost everything, we spent 2 years with no heating through the winter. So I've already done it. So I'm like that. I don't care about no energy. I'm there. I've got jumpers. I've got gloves.
I bought my tea lights.
I've got tea lights. Got an emergency lamp. We're away. Right. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent. Dhruva says you'll learn something from everyone. So talk to everyone. I completely agree. And even if it's talking to not so nice people, you then learn to avoid them moving forward, which is another lesson, isn't it? About surrounding yourself with the right people, perhaps.
And I would also encourage people to go to conferences. There's so many events going on at the moment, and networking for free, right? So be proactive.
Get free hats.
I'm going to get your whole T-shirt and the whole outfit sorted out, and then you can wear
it. Yeah, this is the only non-free T-shirt I've worn actually since I came back from RSA in San Francisco this year. I think I got 15 T-shirts, 6 pairs of socks. I don't know how many office-like toys. I've got Christmas wrapped up for like half my family. It's brilliant.
Well, people don't go for the things like families, but I would say go for the networking and the knowledge, because we've as Simon keeps reminding everyone, we're a little bit older. So we've built the networks, we've got the relationships. And I think the beauty of that is people know and trust you, know what you're about. And for everyone else who wants to go into a certain industry, look up some of those events, go along, meet the people, and don't be afraid, because everyone, I remember when I was first in private equity and venture capital, I was 30 years old. I just joined Dow Jones. I didn't know anything about it. And I was out of my depth. Like I was, 3 men.
Sometimes the best way to be, though, isn't it?
I know, and I just remember feeling like, please don't ask me a question. Please don't ask me a question. I don't know anything yet, because I was training. But the good thing is I was just learning about the terms, just learning. And then within 6 months, it was just second nature to hear those terms and know what they mean. So don't feel like it's going to be uncomfortable forever. Throw yourself in there and get, even a mentor. Like, look at in cybersecurity.
Do you still have nightmares about PE ratios and yield curves or not?
No,
because I do.
No. I used to help. We used to provide data, actually, investment data. So I was a little bit on that side. Yeah.
But what was that? Was that like analytics kind of data?
So it was trends, global trends versus industry, and where the investments were going.
Well, I think financial services used to buy your data for their marketing campaigns. Am I right? Is that
venture source?
No. No, different company. Because when we used to put campaigns together at Aegon and Lloyds, the bank, we used to use data from a few different providers that used to look at market trends. And it's no different in this industry, is it? Lots of money in data.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of good that can come out of data as well. So if you look at, again, candidates are looking from their side, okay, I've applied for 100 jobs, haven't heard back, not even an acknowledgement. And I think employers, come on, we're in the world of automation. We can, everyone deserves a reply. Like, it doesn't take long, just automate it if you don't have anyone who's in charge, because even feedback from interviews would be handy, and that's where I'm hoping to get everybody feedback, where it's passed on to me, and the employers I work with they are brilliant at giving me that information so that I can give it to the person who didn't get the job, so they can be aware and know what they need to work on. And I think that's really important, because at least that highlights what their gaps were compared to other candidate that was offered, for example. But it takes a proactive approach, and if more kind of was in this space, which is the missing links, if you like, I'm pretty sure that people would have a smoother, nicer experience and not dread looking for a job.
It's not a particularly nice experience, is it? Let's be honest. And I think it's that constantly comparing yourself to others, and not knowing who those others are to compare yourself to. And again, there seems to be a bit of gender bias from some research I read a few weeks ago. I think we had a chat about this the first time we spoke, actually, with regards to, I think you said earlier about people will apply for jobs if they can, if they think they can do it. I think men typically, and this isn't a sexist comment, but I think men typically will apply for a job where they think they can do half the stuff, but have the blind arrogance and stupidity to think they'll be fine with the rest. Whereas women tend to take a more measured approach, which means perhaps employers and the candidates are missing out on some of those opportunities. And I think employers and hiring managers need to understand that, and perhaps look at how they advertise those roles a bit differently. Or have I hit the wrong point there?
No, you're right. And there was some study done on this. There is actually some science behind this as well, that job descriptions, the way they're written, will appeal either more to men or women. And there's slight ways of phrasing things which attracts, if you put flexibility in there, for example, more women would apply for the job, things like that. Because I think one of the things that women, especially when they're experienced, they've got families, they've got children to juggle. Like, you've got to work for a company that understands that delivery is important, not like micromanaging them every second of the day. Like, that's just not, the world's changed, but recruitment hasn't. It's just certain things have stayed the same. And I think the other point that you brought up earlier, like in terms of gender and about the difference between men and women, is true. Women typically have to be absolutely excellent at something before they ask for something, right? Or go for, or apply for a job. But also salary wise, market rates are market rates. And this is, again, where an agency can help. We're quite consultative. So both sides. So an employer could be planning ahead and saying, okay, in 2 months' time, we need like a team of 5. And what is the market rate currently? And they could be way off. So our job is also to educate them, whether it's high or low. We'll give them the information that's correct, because what you don't want to do is employ someone and then they're offered by someone else.
No.
3 months, 6 months later, you've lost that talent. And on the other side is also to let the candidates know, because they could be in a job and then they don't really know what the market rates are at the moment. So I think being honest and transparent from both sides is really important, so that people can be aware and not be afraid. Like, I've had people who were asking for X amount and market rate could be 10K more. And I will honestly tell them that, just because that's within the budget. So it's not like you're screwing anyone over. No, you're not being trying to take advantage of the situation. But I think some of these people are getting 20 to 30 emails a day in their inbox trying to get them to leave their job. And these are the people that are in work, right? They're they're contacted first. The people who are out of work, it's almost like, what's wrong with them? Why are they not working? Yeah. It's a little bit like
this is going to sound really old and sexist, but I remember a mate of mine used to wear a wedding ring when we were like in our early 20s when he went out, because he reckons more women liked him if he was married. Is that the same thing?
There's so much similarities between dating and the recruitment world. And
there is. Yeah, definitely.
There is. And if you don't hear back, you probably haven't got the job then. But I think what would be nice is this courtesy and etiquette, really, to be put back into the industry would be nice. And I think that the people, when we have got them jobs and the experience that they've had and the feedback that we get, it just touches my heart, because my benchmark is not me sitting here thinking, is this what I assume of the industry? It's coming direct from seeing some of the shocking things that are going on. And then when you hear something nice, it's like, oh, okay, thank you. You're like, I'm glad, you had a nice experience and you're happy and great, because that really is, that's really what it's about, getting people into jobs that they love. and it can make a difference to them. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it a little while ago, a few minutes back, about perhaps automate, even if you automate the response process. Because one of the things that, I mean, I've only looked for work once in my life, and that was recently for about a week, and I got it completely wrong. Sent my resume, CV off to loads of people, didn't hear anything back, so just stopped and ended up having one conversation with someone I knew and starting a job about 2 weeks later. So I learned the hard way on the spray and pray approach when it comes to sending out resumes. But I wonder whether, I think about probably applied for 100 in a week, and I reckon I heard back from about 10. And the lack of contact from the other ones leaves a bit of a sour taste in your mouth, doesn't it? And I
Yeah, I
wonder
think
whether they're shooting themselves in their foot for potential candidates, because there's a couple of firms who I applied to where I arrogantly thought I was quite a good fit and I'd at least hear a response back. And again, I suppose, again, drop your ego, isn't it, when you're looking for work, and stop taking
um,
it personally.
yeah, I mean, it's natural to think you can do something. So I don't know if it's always about ego. There was a comment here, sorry, it's gone, but I think there was a comment here that he applied for 400 and something jobs, I think, and he's only heard back 4 times.
Yeah,
That is just shocking. So my
yeah,
point is that
there it is.
the employers and the brands, if you,
786
oh my
applications.
God, even more. Okay, I totally got that wrong. My message to employers is, if you are one of the few companies that, and you know, again, this is really important to us, and we're going to develop something that does this. If you're one of the few brands that gets back to every single person, guess what? They're going to tell their friends, who are going to tell their friends, and suddenly, even if someone, on average, the job applications are actually going to go up because the market is making cuts. Therefore, the problem is going to get worse and worse. More and more people are not going to hear back from certain brands. And what I can't understand is why they're spending millions for a billboard when they can just automate a process which is far less costly, but the impact that they will have, they'll stand out, because hardly anyone is doing this at the moment properly, right? I remember when I was figuring out what to do and I applied for a few jobs, I got some messages once I'd even, you know, like 3 months later. And I
Yeah,
was
I've had a couple of those. Yeah. Sorry, you didn't get the job. Well, I can't even remember applying for it. It was 6 months ago.
But it was more the fact that that's too late, like 3 months. Like, because I might be, I think mentally people start to question what's wrong with me, why am I not getting the job, and so on. So I think that what people need to realize is that it's almost like a coach, but a bit different to a coach, where brutal honesty, practice, some interview tips, all of this stuff, like little just nuggets of information for me to just share how employers look at candidates CVs and what's going on with the agencies. You know, sometimes they can help you, sometimes they can block you. So there is, and we have to understand that if there are hundreds of applicants going through, you physically, you know, they have to automate for it to happen, because otherwise that would be like a whole team getting back to someone every single day, calling them, right? That's a job in itself. So
could you not use that if you had a good recruitment process? So a nice, I suppose, even for those who went through an interview process and then got a rejection, if you can make that as nice as possible, couldn't you use that as an opportunity to get some positive reviews and feedback as well?
If
Just
you
an
were
idea.
you could.
Am I?
You could get a great response just by doing, like,
you could. I mean, you think of the power, right? Social proof, isn't it? It's what every company wants. They all want that. And in this industry at the moment, the worst reputations are down to bad hiring practices. And I'm a salesman, right? I can't get away from that. So I always look at the angle where you could kind of get some benefit. And it seems to me like there's a massive hole there.
There is, and I think that there's also, it could put someone off a company. Like, I've spoken to some candidates who've gone through like an 8-stage process and they're still waiting to hear 8 stages. And I'm like, what are you applying for? A surgeon, right? Yeah. It's like, come on.
And they were the non-practical interviews. I tried to think how hard they'd be. Yeah.
So I think that, again, interview processes need to change, or processes in general need to change and be more up to date for what is actually required now. If an employer moves fast, they will get the best talent. And that also creates a wow factor for the candidate, for the applicant, where they're like, wow, they moved really fast, which makes me think that, and if a candidate...
I'm valued, makes you think you're valued for a start, which again is something else that employers seem to be a bit lacking on perhaps.
But also, more importantly, however you treat the candidates during the interview process gives them an impression of that's how it's going to be when they join. Therefore, if you ignore them, they're never going to apply to your company again. If you give them a great experience, they're going to be wowed by it. Even if they hear back, they're going to be impressed by the fact that someone gave back, you know, and mentally, some of these people, I feel so sorry for them. Their circumstances, they're struggling to pay bills, they're applying. It's like, can we put some empathy? I want to put some empathy into the process and really take care of people to make sure that both sides are looked after, and just give brutal honesty and advice to the employers, and then work with the ones and make those changes and make it nice for them and more up to date. And then work with the candidates to make sure that we're taking care of their best needs. If someone says they don't want remote and the job is remote, I'm not even going to put them forward. Like, why?
No. You see a lot of schemes out there who are offering free training though, don't you? And I'm not taking it away from any of these, but beware the gift horse, right? Because these companies are offering you free training, you end up going down a rabbit hole sometimes on a course that you've got no interest in, because that's where they've got jobs. And I've seen that happen a lot recently in the industry, where people have been distracted from what they're focusing on to help fill a need that a company's got by dressing it up as something else. And I won't want to dwell on that too much, because I'll start mentioning names and get myself in trouble. So Chimaria, thank you for pointing out Dima's got a question. And Dima, I don't know if it's a question or whether it's a business proposition. I'm open to either, but I will pull it up. But we might need a little bit more information or clarity around what you actually mean by that. So Dima says, what do you think about starting a startup regarding AI and cyber? Well, I'm up for it if you are. Sahiqa, what do you say?
We're already in plans to like change and innovate.
I think that's what we're doing. I think we had a really good chat actually last week, I think it was, for the first time. And one thing we were both really conscious of was not saying too much about what you're working on, because it's a very sensitive world out there. Lots of people with ears who steal ideas. And I think let's not jump into it too much. But what you're working on, from what I've heard off camera, is exactly that, Dima, and it's very, very exciting, and I won't say any more.
Yeah, we're like I say, I'm looking to bring a few things together which I believe would make a huge shift to the experience, and even like going in younger, like to you know, when people are graduating and studying for these, just to get that link a bit more closer with some of these initiatives that we've got planned. And that would go in the employers. It's beyond, because at the moment there's so much disheartening things that are going on, and we just need to, the gap is this wide at the moment. We just need to make sure that it's less and full of a bit more quality, really. So I think let's see what happens, but we've got some plans. And
let's not dwell on the plans, but what are you doing right now? So for people who want to engage with what you're doing, how does that work? What does it look like?
Sure. So we're hiring. So we've got, you know, any employers that are looking for people. We've already got, you know, normally a good pool of candidates that are screened. We've got like a bunch of people that have got potential. So yeah, definitely looking to help on the hiring side for employers who want a fresh approach, because just because you've got, I've worked with employers who've got PSL, for example, right? They've got like, oh, we use 10 people, 10 agencies are on our PSL. And I think, when did you review them? And are they fulfilling every need? Because then you wouldn't need me, right? So I feel like employers need to freshen up, be big on diversity and inclusion. Who are these agencies that we're using? And put another solution in the mix, because you're not actually paying anything until someone is identified anyway. And then I'd love to help some people. So like I say, it is in the business to kind of get like groups of people and upskill people, and to get the soft skill training like we've talked about, right, Simon? And I think that anything that I can't, unfortunately, the thing that I will be brutally honest with is I can't help one by one because I'm running a business and I love to help at scale. So I'm more than happy to get a group together and I can deliver some kind of tips and practical advice that homes in on certain scenarios and situations. Happy to do things like that. But I think right now,
People follow you on LinkedIn as well.
yeah, please do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me drop
yeah,
that in there. There we go.
yeah.
Didn't want to drop it in without asking.
Thank you. No, feel free. And I always try to share things that are around the future, topics that I'm talking about, and also, leverage some of the connections. Like, look at the companies that you want to work for, right? We've all got dream list of, for me, it's clients, and for you, it could be companies that you want to work for. Make a list for those. Connect with those people so that you get to see not just job posts, but posts. Because sometimes people share that they are looking for someone, not necessarily advertised as a job. And connect with people, and you'll be amazed at how you build your network right now, especially for the people that want to get into this industry. Build your network and do things like this, like just be with the right people and just hear. There might be one thing that you hear and it might make a difference to you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, again, spray and pray approach. Can't even speak. It's been a long day. Spray and pray approach to networking isn't always the best either. And I think for me, it's about focusing in on the people that are going to help you and people that you want to be surrounded with, rather than just going for the old more numbers the better, which I don't think it always is a numbers game in that respect. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, and I'll give you an example. If I go to an event, I'm not there to speak to absolutely everybody that's there at the event. And especially if you're speaking, you come off and everyone wants to talk. So I think it's a case of identifying what can you add value to? Can I add value to you? Can I help you out? And then if someone comes with me for a question, will help them, of course. But there is this thing about social equity. And we've built, there's relationships at stake, and people will not necessarily kind of do stuff without knowing a bit more about you. And if Simon recommends someone to me, there's things that I will want to do, for example, but it's very difficult because otherwise the problem is the recruitment process has to be fixed. So if things can be put into the recruitment industry, which alleviates some of this pain, people will have nicer experiences. But if you go to a conference, have a look at who's speaking, have a look at the list of attendees, and then be like, oh, okay, these 4 are in cybersecurity. Right, they're the ones I'm going to try and talk to, right? So that's the focus, that's the niche. I'm in AI, tech, and cybersecurity. So for me, it's anything in those areas I'm happy to help with, right? If someone came to me and said, oh, can you help me with a finance role? Maybe if it's a very good contact of mine from way back, but that's not really I'm not looking to disrupt the financial industry, right?
No, it's boring. I've been in it for 25 years. Don't do that.
I do know one exciting CFO, but generally, yeah, it's not my area.
I just want to. I've got my pen out because you mentioned the offer of help, right? So how about we do another live session, but on that live session, we can bring on members of the audience who want to have their resume or CV reviewed, and we do a handful of them in a session. What do you reckon?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Just write that down because otherwise I'll have forgotten by tomorrow. Resume review. And what I will do, I will reach out to you tomorrow and get a date in the diary. So let's wrap things up. 2 reasons. We're 5 minutes earlier than usual. I've had an awful day today. So for anyone that knows my personal circumstances, been clearing my family home ready for sale, which is my mum's house today. It's been a tough day, and I've got another live stream in 10 minutes. So I need caffeine, nicotine, and some water splashed on my face to make it through the next one. It's been absolutely amazing speaking to you. Really, really insightful. And I think you can see from the people engaging in the comments, everyone's really interested in what you've had to say as well, Sahiqa. So thank you so much. Any final words before I play a little stinger and play us out?
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned into this, and I hope you get some value, and keep your head up, be confident. Life does turn around, and resilience is one of the biggest things I would say. Just keep going, and take advice, and you'll get there, and don't give up.
Absolutely. Sahiqa, thank you so much. Everyone, see you in about 10 minutes. Thank you. See you soon.
All right, bye.